Recently, IO Interactive announced their next project, a James Bond game titled 007 First Light, that appears to put us in the shoes of a young James Bond as he's introduced to a world of espionage. And so naturally, in wake of this announcement, I felt an urge to go back and play IO Interactive's most recent trilogy, Hitman World of Assassination, confusingly comprised of 3 games titled Hitman, Hitman 2, and Hitman 3. I say confusing because none of them are the first, second, nor third Hitman titles. It's a reboot trilogy, and it's trendy to just give a reboot the namesake of a game that already exists. Or as I like to refer to it, a devious scheme to ensure you're disappointed with your grandmother at Christmas. But that's besides the point. These 3 games are all the reasoning I need to be optimistic for IO Interactive making a James Bond game. Because, I don't say this lightly, but I truly believe they're some of the most fun games going, full stop. We play as Agent 47, not you, go away. We play as Agent 47, a genetically engineered clone and cold-blooded purpose-built assassin.
You're not here to kill me.
A master of disguise, infiltration and execution with as much remorse as he has hairs on his head. An emotionally stunted killing machine who can get anywhere and take out anyone, in any way. If he's sent after you, it's only a matter of time, because he can become anyone, assume any role, provided said individual could plausibly be bold, I guess, and then boom, you're getting smothered to death by your therapist. Your car's been catastrophically sabotaged by your mechanic, and then you explode and die in comedic fashion. You get twatted off the tallest building in the world. You're getting choked out by the Stig. Your new healthcare practitioner has arrived, and he specialises in malpractice. You will never see him coming. His only discernible feature is a barcode tattoo on the back of his head that makes you wonder what would happen if he headbutt a Tesco self-service checkout. But don't think about that too much, because you might start wondering why you don't just do that yourself. Hitman as a game is about 2 things. Firstly, killing people. Secondly, the wealth of endless possibility. Its simple premise is we, as Agent 47, undertake the assassination of various high-profile targets in a variety of environments. And this takes us to many an atmosphere-rich location all around the world, from the glistening beaches of Miami to the crisp mountains of the Hokkaido prefecture of Japan, and the beautiful villas of Italy to the sprawling streets of Mumbai. And in these small, contained world spaces, our often fairly straightforward objectives are explored through the wealth of possibility. We're dropped at a starting location, given the task of killing whomever, and it's up to us to figure out how. The mission design is presented incredibly simply, but under the surface is a series of puzzles that we have to pick and choose, the ones we want to solve, the pathways we want to follow, or the paths we want to carve. We're told what to do, but we're not necessarily told how. We have to go and find that, and there are a multitude of options. Stories to unravel to drop us on a target's doorstep, and discoveries to make that may present their own opportunities. And at first, that is incredibly overwhelming. The first time around of any mission, chances are good you scuffed your way to success. Perhaps you lost patience with the process you're yet to understand and treated it like a third-person shooter. Getting the job done, albeit the loud way, but it's not awfully satisfying. This is because, one way or another, the game actively discourages wasted actions. Yes, the sloppy options such as guns are there. You can turn this game into an ungodly bloodbath if you want to, and the game won't stop you. But in most scenarios, such an approach is intended to feel impractical. The shooting mechanics are hardly intended to be satisfying, merely functional. For some indecipherable reason, Agent 47 cannot run. He simply jogs. So absconding from the commotion occurs at a rate that is less than ideal. And finally, with an open plan mission design, you will hardly ever find yourself funneled into a tactically convenient corridor. Cover is far less useful when you're being shot at from all directions. Success under those conditions is not skill. It's luck, and simply being lucky is a far cry from the fantasy of being a world-class super assassin, to whom every action is deliberate, and every outcome is accounted for. The difference between the playstyle of a gamer when given a third-person perspective and a gun versus an assassin's approach to their own dirty work is huge. There is a monstrous gap to bridge. For instance, the player has no sense of mortality in this environment because it's entirely fictional. We can just redo it if we die. This gives us cause to experiment as much as it allows us to bang our head against the same brick wall in the exact same place, time and time again expecting a different result. So being meticulous and planning ahead does not come naturally, not in the way that you would assume it would to an apex predator, to whom it is crucial to their very survival that they remain in total control of their surroundings, and that is the approach the Hitman games want the player to have. Now, it's impossible to beat the game out of the game altogether, after all, that is ultimately what this is, but how do you convince the player to play the game properly? Hitman's approach here is a straightforward stroke of genius. Let the player play it wrong first. Now, when it comes to single-player games, there is no right or wrong way to play it. So when I say playing the game wrong, I don't mean in the sleazy sense of dictating your personal fun or anything else. God knows I enjoy messing around in this game as much as the next man. But what I mean is, for those yet to learn what this game is all about, jumping in perhaps for the first time, doing their first few missions, a crucial step to understanding what makes things tick is playing the game perhaps somewhat haphazardly, to roll with the chaos and see if you get away with it. Basically, to play the game like a standard third-person shooter with some stealth elements and see what happens. It's direct, so off the back of playing hundreds of other games like it, it comes the most naturally. You carry out your objectives to the letter, and it works, but when the day's done, the game makes a point of ensuring you know that that's all you've accomplished. At the end of the mission, the game will showcase everything you actually did, against a backdrop of opportunities you did not capitalize on. It shows you how much you did or did not explore or experiment with, and briefly highlights just how much more the level has to offer, before awarding you a playstyle and a rating, to let you know how you fared against how Agent 47 would probably actually go about it. The game practically declares to you its own replay value, the challenges you didn't complete, the stories you didn't explore, the areas you didn't discover, the esoteric weapons laying around waiting for you to put them to good use, for instance an explosive golf ball. I love you, explosive golf ball. This knowledge emboldens the player to play the level again, to more thoroughly explore the options available to you, to pick your moment and means to finally strike, minimizing the risks of the situation getting out of hand. And that doesn't strictly marry you to an all-stealth playstyle, it simply means your brain is stimulated beyond mindless fun, as you are now navigating the world space and maneuvering towards your objectives as one really big, long-winded, dynamic puzzle. And even then, in one run, you can only do so much of it. The mission design offers so much it's frankly impossible to encompass it all, so there's still room to experiment and find what's most efficient, what scratches the itch best, and oftentimes that'll lead to a vastly different experience to your last attempt. The end goal of this, of course, is to pull off outrageously efficient assassinations with your eyes shut.
We're letting you go, Mr. Jackson.
This is not my first termination, Miss Savalas.
The variety ensures that to enjoy this game properly, you do not have to play it perfectly, you simply have to find what's satisfying for you. If that results in some open tomfoolery, so be it. Provided you're engaging with and experimenting with the sandbox, the game has an almost unlimited feeling variety to supplement you, many of which will place you in unique positions where Agent 47 has to inhabit a bespoke role. Sure, there are simple disguises to enjoy, such as that of staff or guards or janitors or something along those lines that grants you access to certain areas you wouldn't get to without them. But the level design overall is littered with and tailored around more specific guises. There's only one instance where you'll partake in a job interview. There's only one instance where you're an unfortunate sod getting the sack. There's only one time you'll be a fashion model, a racing team pit mechanic, and one of my personal favourites, a private investigator, unravelling a murder on behalf of our client who's also our target. Hitman is constantly offering new situations, providing you with unique means to squirrel yourself into an advantageous position, oftentimes entirely or at least partially transforming the level to revolve around the specific needs of the approach. And if you stubbornly treated the game like a generic third-person shooter, you would miss out on all of it. And the game's aware of that, and though it discourages you resorting to that playstyle, it isn't too shy to tempt you. There are many instances where you've just arrived in a world space and your target just appears in front of you. Sure, with the benefit of a silenced pistol, you can take them out cleanly and quietly. If it works and you manage to get away cleanly, it will save you some time. But you're also robbing yourself of the depth of the gameplay. For example, there are many means to be shot of Robert Knox in Miami. He's just strutting about in an area that's fairly easy to get to. The act of killing him is quite straightforward. What's harder to accomplish is managing to do so without being shot to pieces by his entourage of guards. Maybe if you pick your moment well enough, you'll be able to get away from the shootout. But why not disguise yourself as an engineer? Find the robot that somebody has given a gun and use his photographic references to track its targets. find Nox's face on a magazine in a conference room not too far away, wait for him to show up and experience a demonstration of his new AI overlord friend, scan his bag and mug and watch the future catch up with him.
Yeah, boss, I'm...
Target acquired. Robert Knox.
Damn it.
This makes events look a bit like an unfortunate accident, leaving you, Agent 47, to simply walk away, unnoticed, as nobody saw you coming and nobody's seeing you going. You can strike loud, but if you're meticulous, you can maintain a consistent silence. You'll never be seen. You're a ghost, a silent assassin. At first, such an approach seems impossible, but the more times you do the level, the more possible it becomes. Every time you complete a run, you're learning, and that knowledge becomes invaluable for the next time. Suddenly, you're sleepwalking through environments that at first seem challenging. At that point, it is no longer luck, it's skill, and you complete the cycle of realizing the fantasy of being bold. There's no more powerful sensation than feeling as if you're in control, that events are going according to a plan, your plan, one you don't just possess the brains to formulate, but the raw skill to pull it off. You have a conscious bearing of all the avenues available to you, a clear view of all of your advantages and all of your obstacles. But above all else, you get this feeling that to you, no one is untouchable. Your target could put an army between themselves and you, and it won't matter. Nothing can stop you hitting your mark. You are now the world's deadliest assassin, ruthless, calculated, unstoppable. You transcend merely being a killing machine and become a force of nature. The Reaper.
Tobias Reaper.
So yes, the overtly violent approach is a valid playstyle, but it's not a flavour of fun you have to look too hard to find when it comes to games, and I can think of many examples where Hitman's shooter mechanics aren't just matched, they're outclassed. So as entertaining as it can be to sometimes say sod it and raise hell, were this all the game offered, I don't think I'd enjoy it anywhere near as much. Hitman therefore uses player creativity and expression, that desire to go exploring, to offer an experience much trickier to replicate, something impossible to accomplish without intention. The black box, as it's become known, perhaps thanks in part to Assassin's Creed's lighter use of a very similar setup, where you're given a very straightforward objective to find and take out your target, but it's up to you to figure out how and identify and seize opportunities. Obviously, in the Assassin's Creed games that have it, it's much lighter, faster, less meticulous and expansive to suit the context of the broader open world game that it's a part of. But that mission structure is all Hitman is. It spares no expense in elaborating the atmospheres of its backdrops, provides us with no shortage of pathways, opportunities, and allows the player freedom to experiment and study their environment, not only emphasising the importance of the approaches we choose, but also those we ignore. There's so much to see and do, the mission parameters become dynamic, opportunities can expire, and if something more interesting shows up, you can pivot. There's such a wealth of valid avenues that the system is not relying on the player being fond of one particular opportunity to render an encounter unique, and that idea of there always being another way allows the system to truly thrive. The system understands that certain approaches are for you, others really aren't. Assassin's Creed's black box setup doesn't really have a failsafe for that. If you don't like the opportunity, your best bet becomes blitzing it in messy carnage. If one potential elaborate approach doesn't appeal to you in Hitman, there's always another. There's a much further distance to drop before you start taking pot shots at your target and hoping for the best. The integrity of the fantasy is sustained unless you truly want to break it. Once you understand how the gameplay comes together, you have to go out of your way to treat it like any other third-person shooter, whereas at the start it may seem like going out of your way to treat it as anything but. The game is simply clever and bids to reward you for being clever too.
Won't know what hit her.
Yeah, there are some levels that realise this more than others. The quality isn't consistently the very top tier, but I'd argue the high quality levels far outweigh those that did my head in. I find the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy to be consistently engaging to a high degree, and often I find its least entertaining moments to be its exhibition pieces. The rare gameplay segments that off the top of my head I can only count 3, and one of them's a tutorial so it doesn't really count, where the black box doesn't apply and your options are more limited. Tighter gameplay segments with less wiggle room. Even these are made enjoyable through their unique environments, and the fact the gameplay is still bidding to put you in a unique feeling position. Sometimes as well, particularly the final mission of Hitman 3, it's meant to be a go raise hell mission as a reward for being patient and sticking out the rest of the gameplay. However, it doesn't quite count on the fact that you've actually come to enjoy the general gameplay loop of this game, and so that doesn't come naturally anymore. So it becomes a game of unshackling yourself from limitations you've come to quite appreciate. But that's still fun gameplay by all conventional standards. It just doesn't necessarily highlight what makes Hitman special as profoundly. Perhaps this also makes a point of why there were 2 Hitman films and both of them were kinda rubbish. You can give any actor a suit, a red tie, shave his head and slap a barcode on the back of it as much as you want. Assimilating the visage of Agent 47 is easy, but removing the player input that allows the game to become a stealth puzzle absolute corker leaves you with precious little room to do anything more than create a generic action thriller. This is because the nature of what makes Hitman so good is highly dependent on the medium. The freeform, non-linear aspects to the game are just too critical to what Hitman actually is. I wouldn't argue the 3 games I'm focusing on in this video boast a standout story. It's not bad, nor is it hard to follow, it's just an awkwardly told, but rather run-of-the-mill spy thriller. One with a rather strong political commentary on capitalism, and we're in the pursuit of an ultra-wealthy people, world domination conspiracy, where our target's greatest weakness is often their own hubris, the fact they believe they're untouchable, and we're out to disprove that. It's functional storytelling, but without how it explores its mission design, how its themes are so carefully and elaborately woven into its environments, the small details, the things your mind must first be open to even consider its importance. It isn't as such a story you'll distinctly resort to Hitman to appreciate. The game wants you to appreciate it, so it uses its flexibility as a game to ensure that you do. That can't be concisely corralled into 2 hours, nor can it realistically be linearly delivered. But I'm getting sidetracked here, nobody's come to the video to hear me talk about those abominations. However, they do expose the value of the interactivity. The general gameplay is not the only thing that's fluid and dynamic. The storytelling that makes you care about that is the same. You see, the opportunities aren't just fun gameplay, they also drip feed us information about the characters we're here to assassinate. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that merely existing within the world exposes us to countless details of our targets and the impact they have. Our targets are reasonably portrayed as ordinarily reprehensible people. There's typically a flick of parody to them, but the details are there to ensure that we are committed to ending their lives. Brutally. Gently pace any environment in this game and you'll find information out about your target, what exactly they're doing or intend to do in this world, and maybe even examples of people they've impacted. For instance, the New York mission in Hitman 2 has us infiltrate a bank called Milton Fitzpatrick, run by a woman named Athena Savalas. There are many avenues to explore when landed. We can find a journalist supposedly investigating some underhanded business. We can disguise ourselves as a job applicant where it becomes clear they're looking for cutthroat individuals in particular, those who know how to bend the rules. They do this through a Rorschach test, which is frankly ridiculous. If they had the skills to deduce anything from that, they wouldn't work in HR. But the point is, they're obviously seeking a new colleague with limited ethics. If you fail their meaningless test, which is quite an obvious puzzle in fairness, they will hire you, but in accounting. But if you pass, they'll offer you the investment banker role, and praise you for your cutthroat killer instinct. And that can't bode well for the people whose money it is you'll be handling. Unfortunately for HR, however, they've just given thorough clearance to a different caliber of cutthroat killer. Another pathway in this mission is disguising ourselves as a soon-to-be former employee about to get canned. This grants us a personal one-to-one meeting with our target where it's apparent that she enjoys this. She's not just totally indifferent to the life she's about to turn upside down, there's a poorly disguised inflection of glee in her voice as she says it, and that makes you as a human being want to lob the screwdriver at her head or kick her out a window. And that reminds me of my favourite word in the dictionary. Another example of a mission that justifies itself as it goes like this is the Ark Society that takes us to the Isle of Scale, a fictional isle in the North Atlantic where a rich people cult gathers. If you spend some time blending by the bar, you'll overhear a conversation where 2 presumably wealthy women are talking about how easy it is to secure the loyalty of their servants.
Their wants are modest. Just pay their kids' college tuition and they take our secrets to the grave.
Of course, they're talking about this in the context of by comparison to creative types who are far harder to win over, and the fact they're harder to buy off in the wake of moral offence. It becomes apparent these wealthy individuals cannot comprehend that those who aren't anywhere near as financially fortunate could possibly possess integrity. In fact, the commentary on the excesses of capitalism and how it can warp one's moral compass are abundant throughout this mission. Rather than helping the poor, they are literally throwing a big pile of money in a pit in the courtyard and setting it on fire. It may very well be a pledge to their eccentric cult, but it sure does make burning one of the cult leaders alive moments later all the more satisfying. These people have lost touch with the value of what they have, and if Zoe Washington's stunt is any indication, perhaps even the value of their own mortality, believing themselves untouchable, unreachable, unkillable, unburdened by the trivial concerns of mortals. Yes, it's satisfying to punish them for their flippancy and arrogance, as everything they hold dear is purged from them on a mound of their own hubris. In the city of Chongqing, we're introduced to a fella named Hush who's performing transhuman experiments on homeless people, presumably because it'll be easier to destroy all traces of such a person in the event the experiment fails catastrophically. So yes, I want to lob an axe in his head. But the immersive storytelling extends far beyond the target. The worlds we find ourselves killing people in are interesting within themselves, often visually unique, and atmospheric beyond belief. Not to mention sometimes the stories we become involved with aren't always merely vessels to get close to our targets. Take for instance assuming the role of a private investigator in Dartmoor, England, which is in Devon by the way, which is nice. It looks nothing like Devon, there's not a hint of a West Country accent anywhere, but Hitman's authenticity is perhaps not one of its strongest points. The presence of my county of origin aside in this game, while investigating the murder at this manor house, does wiggle you to within intimate distance of your target, getting to the bottom of this aristocratic whodunit, analysing the crime scene, finding secret passageways throughout the house, interviewing suspects, utilising the process of elimination to identify the culprit. It's compelling in its own right, and so you find yourself actually wanting to solve the crime. And if that's what you want to do, the game lets you. It's incredibly easy to forget you're actually here to perform an assassination, and that's a testament to the attention to detail that's gone into this. It also furthers the idea of Agent 47 disappearing into his disguises. We often find ourselves engaging in stories unique to the role we're assuming. Sometimes this is the default. For instance, Agent 47 as himself offering somebody relationship advice in the rain.
I'm kind of scared she's outgrowing me. Like maybe she's changing, but I'm just staying the same. I'm just, I don't know, dead weight.
She agreed to meet you in the middle of the night, in the rain. No one does that if they don't care.
Guess that's true. Oh, I feel like kind of an asshole for asking her out now. She's probably ruining her shoes in this weather, just so we can get drinks.
Maybe you can pick up the tab.
That's a good idea.
These games' environments are constantly exposing us to storytelling. In fact, I'd argue it's that serves as the glue that allows everything else to function. Without it, the multiple approach idea is wasted. You'd simply run in, take out your target by whatever means necessary, and then get out. Hitman doesn't just sell the gameplay idea of minimizing wasted movement, it also places massive emphasis on rewarding the player for acknowledging and engaging with the depth available to them. And that's the difference between a fun game you can switch your mind off to and a great game. And that's what Hitman is, an exceptional realization of what it set out to accomplish. And perhaps as the icing on the cake, it's not all serious assassination business. These three games feature a wicked sense of humor. In fact, the world of Assassination trilogy is renowned for being unintentionally funny, which is an astute observation until you realize none of it was unintentional.
I called for assistance, but for now I need you to stay still.
Oh, my head. Where are my clothes? Have you seen my mascot outfit? Oh, my head is killing me.
The Hitman games aren't above a stroke of whimsy, hilarious ways in which you complete your task purely because there's a good chance by the time you found them you've done the level about 10 times and need a bit of levity in your life.
Ah, there's my car. See her.
The game is far from above taking the mick out of itself. For instance, one of the exits on the Miami level if you're wearing the flamingo costume is Agent 47 simply flapping his arms and flying away. It's a game about a very serious assassin killing very bad people, but it enjoys many a comedic Easter egg But you don't necessarily have to resort to extremes to appreciate this game's sense of humour. 47's unwavering deadpan expression is supposed to show that no matter what, he is a focused killing machine, but it's also a bit silly. Then there's his unrelenting onslaught of murder puns.
There will be consequences if word gets out that Madame Carlyle is still alive.
I'll consider her dead when I leave. This is not my first termination, Miss Savalas. This is the downstairs living room. It is most commonly used for watching television and other recreational purposes. Large room with 2 easy-to-get-to exits. Dark floors hide stains easily. A room with lots of potential. Can I finish my work now?
Do what you do best, man.
You got it.
I thought your hippie types were only into the softer drugs. I'm surprised to see you working for Franco.
Peace and love isn't really my thing.
So, what's on the menu? Something that'll take care of this hideous pain in my neck, I hope.
I promise. Once I'm done, you won't feel a thing.
The tides are changing, my friend. Can you feel it in the air? My bones are creaking with joy at the prospect of what is about to happen.
I don't feel anything, I'm afraid.
Okay, some of them are more dry comments than puns, but 47's got a repertoire of amusing dialogue that can bring out the devious cackle in anybody.
Who are you? Where's Lafayette?
He's not well.
Even then, there are other things like 47's alias, Tobias Reaper, being a play on The Reaper, and the fact that nobody seems to twig onto that. Then there's the whole premise of using disguises. Not only is Agent 47 perfectly capable of entirely changing clothes in a matter of about 3 seconds, the disguises are sometimes ridiculously elaborate. For instance, the tattoo artist. We take his clothes, we also take his tattoos. I'm not entirely sure by what logic this works, but I assume it's the same logic that allows us to fly in the flamingo costume. And for all that effort, the target still has dialogue where he points out that Agent 47 looks nothing like the actual tattoo artist. He still trusts us to not jam the needle in his head and ink his brain, which is exactly what we do. And this works for these games because, though it takes itself seriously, it's also fundamentally aware of how absurd it can be. It doesn't try to run away from the general ridiculous idea of a man in a flamingo costume drowning a mechanic in a portaloo. It can't avoid the fact that being anyone and theoretically doing anything is funny, so the game simply accepts and embraces that it can be. Also, for some reason, when in the white racer costume, Agent 47 really reminds me of the Stig. Not just the appearance of the Stig, I mean the entire mannerisms of the Stig. Has Agent 47 secretly been the Stig all this time? Of all the things I expected this game to do, make me miss good Top Gear was not one of them. Hitman's dark, slapstick humour, if anything, enhances the brilliance of its general gameplay loop. It's another layer of freshness that rewards you for being experimental, for following certain pathways, and often for simply doing your own thing to see what you can get out of it. It adds to the challenge. You first challenge yourself to kill your targets in the most efficient run, then you challenge yourself to efficiently dispatch your contract in the dumbest way possible. The depth of gameplay in Hitman is fun, and that exists on various levels, from the simple circling of an environment to find an opening, a weakness to prey on, to exploring the areas and learning narratively interesting information, and then finding a satisfying modus operandi, and when that's expired, finding the most fundamentally nonsensical methods available. Everything can be accomplished in countless ways. It gives the game immense replay value. To conclude, Hitman's World of Assassination trilogy is the dog's bollocks. It just is. It's a brilliant trilogy of games to sink your teeth into, as it can be enjoyed on multiple levels simultaneously. It has rich experimental gameplay that encourages you to explore and engage with the environments it presents. It has a strong narrative message reinforced in its gameplay loop. Though it's not an appealing factor for the game within itself, the fact that it's there and it's good doesn't really hurt it. It has humour sprawling out its ears. This game can be taken entirely seriously and enjoyed that way, but you can also mess around and enjoy it just as much, and the game has Easter eggs for you if you go that route. That is the brilliance of Hitman. Few games can pull off what IO Interactive did with these titles. True replay value. Despite not being remotely massive as an overall game, you can easily justify sinking hundreds of hours into it, just doing the same missions over and over and over in different, elaborate ways. Like I said, IO Interactive's undertaking of a Bond game is an exciting idea, one I look forward to seeing how they execute. Of course, a 007 game will have to be more than just Hitman with added sex and hair, but the basis of how the environments are delivered to constantly feed you storytelling and the dynamic gameplay of Hitman cannot be a bad start. The only hope is that IO Interactive deliver. Thank you for putting up with my rambling. I'll see you soon.